이 주로나마 다다다 무슨 잠이 도망을 벌거요래. 이 감이 들이면서 또마 산제 초정진지 이들은 무슨 삼천미 이나도만 벌거요래. 다 진지 시라지 당부터 탐합을 오케이 당고래지. 때문에 가시니 거기에 대 말이 이 산제 금부터 뒤 얼마 뒤서라. 내가 뒤쪽으로 저거에 이 롱메 바디 남키 가차를 추구 가차를 산제 통에 참대 이러지. 이 무슨 단나나다 산제라 대바치 대지감에 다 산제 지리 쇼를 지리 책돼야 돼. 하장 가르쳐버리 땡그저들이 또 바차리고 그래서 mende상도 또 요지 맞다가 자카티 요래 나무 자워티 세모 그렇지 자워티 세모티들이 다다다디 맞다가 자카티라 바만로가 하장진이 세모 zam보를 요래 그렇지 맞대더니 그래서 작업자만 축방한 거요. 드레스 뭐데 드리 모도 갖고 요리 드리 모도 지지들이 제바지 드리 사지 좀 내네 되는 송 사지 좀 내네 지랑성 로바들 송들이 사지 요마데 콩 요거 이창 가지게 따로 콩 요도 그래 좀 저게 요거 인송 드레스 뭐데 드레스 뭐데 벤들이 네 뭐데 잡아지 세트들이 다시 뭐들이 사초스만 이제 용지 제보요배 그래서 뭐 참 똑바로 심지고 뭐도 가리래야지. 땅은 사지 용말 되는 심지고도 롱주 무슨 똑바로 사지 빌라 맞지 보면도 이제 이제부터 자고 되게 다 사지 띵지게 상지 띵지실에 팩트를 타를 버리더니 맞지도 맞대로 말이 가지들이 띵지는 팩트를 하래 어따대로 공진이 저기 약합지게 따겠지. 리프트 만 가보냐 서로서 드리 사지 좀 되게 달디 갖다 손들 책을 로 맨디 좀도 둘이 송아지 손들 데리 데로 보겠다 사지 내용이 좀 드리시 사지 그 공문이 산속에 들이 인수 접촉이 참아서 저신 놓는더니 이 롱바티들이 소동을 펴고 송 인수 산속에서 접촉이 탐색들이 이 지금마들이 배기 라라 쪽 때라서 왔더니 총전나봐 나서 그들이 약합들 백 탐색 호지요 봐. 이 사진 좀 되게 샵 소리에 또 살아말 같은 깡 고바자면 이렇게 식적들이 패블 이제 남디 약합들 남발 줘서 나와 약합 줘서 줄고들이 시모 적들이 대다 노동 치고 수진 백치열이 들이들이 다 떠주데 요들은 거래. 그래서 당은 속에 강식 타바이 지바텐드나 나 욕대 딱 봤을 때 로지 제서 가지 석을 지나 들이다 딘드는 공유성 들이 주가 나가다가 차들 로그 깨찍깨찍들이 샤트고 요래 대다는 데데 손들도 뒤진데 들이 사지를 가져 쏘았단 들이 그 정보를 쏴서 뭐 그래서 당은 손들 길리셔 사자선 합지에 들이들이 나타비도 마포가 있더니 몰라 돈다 가리 서거 사지 일 지마타데 사지랑 되는 요디 세 사지 됐다 사지 요삼 거리 난 사지게 랑게 샘데 자마 차선 제 사지를 라고 요래 이거 어려운데 이 샘데 때가 똑바로 뇽바지 찾아오네 랑게 샘데 사지 카카 말이야 나고 대발 대다고도 하고네 그래서 나바사집에 동안들이 주가 시중매봐 롱매봐 그때도 상제 용지 때문에 무슨 거요리 이제 말에 배워서 공주왕을 가르쳐도 공식이요 말이 시디요 말이 저 가지고 요랑 하고 샘데 요래스 상태도 싫었지 그래서 말이 그래서 답답지 때도 상제 무서요 산 드리다는 거를 너발린 거래스
So now, Dharma friends, we come to the actual conference of the Refuge Vow. And so for that, first we need to invite the Buddha, the field of refuge, the refuge tree. And then after having invited the Buddha, then we offer the 7 branches, such as prostration and so forth. And so normally not for the invitation, an ordinary person thinks that now is the invitation, so now I'm inviting him from somewhere far away. Now he needs to come, or now it's kind of like waking up somebody from sleep or so. But actually, it's not like that. But the Buddha actually is always present and always looks upon all beings at all times throughout the 6 periods of day and night, all the time, day and night. Because the Buddha's mind is without coming and going. The Dharmakaya pervades wherever space pervades. And wherever the Dharmakaya pervades, that is where the Buddha's compassion pervades. So it is just like in a way symbolic that we are inviting the Buddha, but actually The Buddha is always there, but we invite the Buddha to cultivate devotion. So these words that the invitation, the words of invitation are actually very, very precious, and they are called, so the words are called, it comes from a girl called Mendesangmo. And she was alive when the Buddha was alive, and she was the daughter of a king in a Buddhist country, but then she was supposed to get married to a king in a non-Buddhist country. So she didn't. She was very sad about that. But then if she wouldn't go there would be war between the two countries. So in order to sustain peace, she had to move to that country to get married there. And so then she was very sad, because she was a devotee of the Buddha. And then she actually went into the presence of the Buddha and lamented and said, I don't want to go to a place where the Buddha does not exist, where you are not. And then the Buddha said, you should go, because it's not that I'm not there. Whenever you call upon me, you invite me, and I will be there in an instant. And so with that, the Buddha sent the girl off, and so then she went to that other country, and she was actually a person who was quite a woman with great qualities, a real practitioner. But then she was never happy, because she missed being close to the Buddha in that other country. And so then the king then once said that, so why is it that you're never happy, you never look happy? And she said that actually I have no reason not to be happy. I have everything I need here, but I'm not happy because the Buddha is not here. And so then the king then said that, but then the Buddha is so far away, this country is very far away, so how could, we couldn't even invite him, he could never reach here. And so then the girl said that actually the Buddha told me that whenever I call upon him, he will be there. So our teacher is not like your teachers. My teacher can come here any moment. And so the king was quite impressed by that. And so then he set up the space for her to make her supplication in her chamber. And then she recited this prayer of invitation that's here in the Refuge text. And that's why the name of the prayer is also called kind of the prayer, which is the realization narrative of the girl Mendesangmo. And so then she recited that prayer of invitation to the Buddha. And so at that time, Buddha was far away. He stayed in Shravasti at that time. And so then the Buddha heard her prayer, and it was late at night, and in the morning, early morning, he summoned his arhats and bodhisattva disciples and so on and said, we need to go miraculously to this country to bestow the Sojong vows, which is to this girl, the lay person's vows. And so then all the arhats and the bodhisattvas, they all went there miraculously. Some of them traveled on the clouds, and some have traveled through on dragons and so on. And actually all the people in that country, that non-Buddhist country, saw them coming. They all saw those miracles. The Buddha himself, he hovered on, like, without his feet touching the ground. He flew there, but in an instant. So he reached there almost instantly. And everybody saw that too. And so because of that, then actually that country eventually became a Buddhist country. And so this is how this girl, Mendesangmo, actually opens the eyes of so many to the Buddhist practice. and she accomplished the benefit of sentient beings really extensively just through this prayer, actually, this invitation. So therefore, this is the invitation that we will begin the refuge ceremony with. And then we start with the refuge. And actually, as we said before, even though there are these words of invitation, actually the Buddha himself had said, whenever you supplicate me, whenever you think of me, I will be actually there. And that what he really meant is that his mind is all pervasive. The Dharmakaya pervades wherever space pervades, and for this reason the Sambhogakaya can appear anywhere at any moment. And therefore this application actually is very precious. And whenever we recite it, we should think that the Buddha is there, actually there, just like in the old days, miraculously appears and is ultimately always pervading. So in this way, we can bring the Buddha here and also receive the Buddha's blessing. And so this is what we will do, the invitation, the blessing, and then the conference of the refuge vow. And so in brief, when you should think in this moment that the Buddha is actually there, is actually coming. Because actually the moment, as the Buddha himself said, the moment you bring him to mind, he is already there actually. So this is how you should think here. And in this way, your mind also becomes pure. And when the mind becomes completely purified, that mind itself is what we call Buddha. Actually, the Buddha dwells within your true nature. And the mind just temporarily is like water, like defiled, polluted water. But ultimately, when the mind becomes purified, you realize that ultimately your own mind has never been apart from the Buddha, is the Buddha. So in this sense, you recognize the inner Buddha that is already there, abiding in the nature of the Dharmakaya that transcends arising and cessation or coming and going. And there are so many more qualities taught about the Buddha. Also, Milarepa said before he passed away, he said that actually I cannot die. My nature will continue to pervade the 5 elements. So whenever you think of me, call upon me, I am there. My mind is there, which is the mind of love and wisdom. So reflect in this way, contemplate in this way single-pointedly at this point, and think that the Buddha is actually here. This is how you should take this vow.
Tirita sanji chomdi de naso jinjok sanji ge jis jokpa thamjela horden lang yorede horden jela rongzi la ko yorese kaharede konkolo jo jasi pha yok semti tonatani samti dakpo jaji delatani khobang pe yorese de se soara de romono tini siba de tong nga dakpo de nga tong kari dila sanji jis tima do o de sanji porores That's it. You did choose it. Oh, my son did you don't correct it. Oh, see the Tiago, somebody no need to way. Oh, they choose it in Bash. Gindi just demand, oh, my son did you Gindi race. Melunga is some sent into the pink cat, torn a dog, no what's all telling you, Marie, something. They're taking them, need quality around the batch, they talk about the tomato to Jomina. And the color of your data, Jenny. You get you what I'm doing, tongue to yours. Didn't took up on the Sanji with Sanji Gisel, what was the Gisel body? Then you had to touch him for it.
And so we are all followers of the Buddha. And for example, as a follower of the Buddha, for example, use this bowl, this which is called the begging bowl, the bowl that the Buddha used. And why is it called the begging bowl? It's because when the Buddha first was a wealthy prince, and he left behind the kingdom and all the material wealth in order to practice, to cultivate love and to benefit sentient beings. So for this sake, he gave up everything. And having given up everything, having renounced material life, he went to beg for alms and ate whatever he received with this begging bowl. And that's all he really had. And therefore, this is what reminds me of the Buddha. Whenever, the reason why I drink out of this begging bowl is because then I remember the Buddha. Whenever I drink out of this bowl, I remember the Buddha. I remember this is the Buddha's bowl. And when I remember the Buddha, I remember the Dharma. And then I remember I'm a follower of the Buddha. So what does that mean? What do I have to do? I have to cultivate love. Do I have love? How much love do I have? So you remember the 3 jewels in this way. And now everyone actually, having taken the refuge vow, becomes a Sangha or a follower of the Buddha. So you also remember the Sangha. And what the Sangha has to do is to benefit all sentient beings with body, speech, and mind. And as much as you can, and to not cause at least any harm towards others at all. So this is what I remember when I just drink from my bowl, my begging bowl. And no matter where I go, and even if I only have water to drink, I always have this with me. I always bring that with me, even though I might not have anything else on me. This is the bowl that all the Sangha can drink of. All the Sangha can have such a bowl. And so it is a way to recollect the 3 jewels, and that's why to me this begging bowl is very precious.
number 6 go to some day, rangi 잠도 도마 나니데 게누 찍로 창거요래 땅아나 르디 라그투고 제노게 방금 게누래 칼리들이 대마게 레좀데 다 가르치시 에게요래 대추래 세계는 터바리들이 세계 탐지를 사바도요 이 수가들이 사지 정도의 가는 의미 디사마데 체메 바제토 그 말이 사바 체메 발 고아상의 요래 이때 고조선 라랑길라마 게베시기 토마테라 창제 데니 존데 문트리더니 라마 게베시니 게긴 체테탑 가든데 양당야도 쥐네 어때 탐지 뭐 다당아래 어때 찍라 게디 찍라 지스디 사지 고조선 창근도 없지 얘네들이 게디 탐지하다 대바다는 게레리 대바다는 게담 체나 게나들이 라나 패기요래 라게 차우럼 잡아도 쇼도요래甚至는 희재체나 대디양 다진 차우럼 쇼요래 고초래 제거만 대바지나 양 다진 차우럼 쇼요래 대중아 대바 다낭제를 들이다 상하가 나와요 거래 다낭제를 되는 거네 동담을 대발해 다다 대회들이 다 고조 라게 개비신이 참말 고조선 참도 이제 감내 주고 했더니 록 얘기 탐지했더니 사제 주발에서 너는 핀바다 내가 좀 탐지 남바 이롱 메롱 적인 감냈더니 새 남바디 다 남바 가서 잡기도 맞췄대 남바래 나가 남바데 남바 이롱 메롱 취직이 가게 소리들이甚至는 막을 핀바다 내가 십대를 남나 석이 남가다 또나 대개는 말해. 남의 남바 유네티 대래. 사와가 남바 가래서리. 남바 집어 사지가 다 요래. 사지 샘에서 샘도 우니 산지 남 사지 샘도 사지 저 샘도 사마 차소들 사지 그 요래. 저 똑같이 뇨마지 쳤들 샘지 다 그래. 뇨마지 쳤대 아쌍바지에서 사지 다 그래. 사지가 마차비 찍다 요 말이. 습지 남 사지니 오자 로버트메드 사지 종지지 다대도 야치보리 뜬사보리 대하고를 대서다 랑게들 또 다다는 대바 기사스까지 주 삼행제리 사지의 시합 내자리도 와쳐서지 이주 나는 진짜지 자리도 막으니 가래 다 주지고 삼신제 지고 대도도 찍송 이 지도에 지는 거래지.
Then next we come to the repeating of the refuge vow. And so for that, so we bring to mind the outer three jewels. And so the person who gives you the refuge vow is the embodiment of all the three jewels. So in this case, it is me giving you the vow as the Sangha. And within the Sangha, you should think the three jewels are complete. So, for example, how the jewels are complete within me is that with my body, in my actions, I abandon harming others. I do not harm others. And therefore, I'm the Sangha. And with the speech, I teach as well as I can the nature of the twofold truth. And so that's why my speech is the Dharma. And then, how is my mind the Buddha? It's because really from the bottom of my heart, I do love all sentient beings. But whose kindness is that? It's really the Buddha's kindness. Without the Buddha's teaching, I couldn't cultivate such immeasurable love. Maybe I could have an understanding of it, but not really this vast love. And so So this is how all the disciples receiving the refuge vow should see it. See the Sangha as the embodiment of the three jewels. So that's the outer Sangha. And then from that, then through the training yourself, you become that. So you remember the kindness of your teacher, and that's also the worldly teachers, over and over again. So you can also think of me now representing the essence of all those teachers that you're grateful for in this moment. You bring this gratitude to mind, and think that within the Sangha that I represent, all the Buddhas of the 3 times and the 3 jewels are complete. So therefore you should receive the vow with faith, with devotion, with a pure perception. And the stronger your pure perception is, the more benefit there will be, the more your own ice block will melt and compassion arises. So when compassion for sentient beings arises, that is when the ice block of self-grasping is really melting. And so as we said before, you cultivate faith as you receive the refuge vow and a pure perception. And a pure perception is actually the essence of the tantric vows. It is the essence of the ultimate truth. So think that within all spiritual teachers, actually, within all teachers, the 3 jewels are complete, and now today I'm representing them. And here we're speaking about the teachers of both traditions, the mundane and the spiritual. Actually, they all are really Buddha emanations, because anyone who benefits sentient beings, who brings about their happiness, really is a Buddha emanation. And for that, one does not have to be a Buddhist, actually, because everyone really has that nature. So in terms of a Buddhist, there is an outer, inner, and a secret Buddhist. The outer or external Buddhist is anyone who has taken the refuge vow. The inner Buddhist, actually, to be an inner Buddhist, one doesn't actually have to be a Buddhist. But an inner Buddhist is anyone who brings peace and happiness, benefit to sentient beings. And anyone who does that, actually that is the Sangha, or the inner Buddhist. And then the secret Buddhist is actually, everyone is a secret Buddhist, because everyone has a mind. Every being has a mind, and what we call Buddha arises from the mind. So the mind itself is the cause of Buddhahood. That is, when the mind becomes completely purified, then that state is what we call Buddhahood, or a Buddha. And so currently our mind is defiled, just like polluted water. And that state of mind is what we call a samsaric sentient being. But when the mind becomes purified back into its natural state, that state is what we call Buddha. And so ultimately, there is nowhere where the Buddha doesn't pervade. So the Buddha pervades everyone. Therefore, the Buddha himself had said that all beings are actually Buddhas. They are only obscured by adventitious, by temporary stains. So actually, this statement of the Buddha is extremely profound and really very deep. And so today, mainly when you receive the refuge vow, cultivate such a pure perception and faith. And then, having cultivated that, what is it that needs to arise in your mind? It is the Dharma. It is the 3 jewels. And so, again, you need to understand that the 3 jewels are within your mind. So first, your wish to receive the refuge vow, that is your Buddha, your inner Buddha. And what actually will give you refuge, your true protection, is the Dharma. And so keeping that in mind, holding this essence of the refuge vow in mind, please repeat the following supplications.
Della tambodri sotaga dobongola dita taru domade jesin choi parde de keligio de kanglidina sotala selunga zojebe lunga isunga goni de sa ngo zojebe de domba mege kyang de zawa yang kang de rangen nanga de naka se songtonga 나 직송선한테 맛이 받아야 돼. 처에 받아서 케일인 거네. 근데 소탈도 너무 오래지. 네 만용 나가더라는 게 소유를 통과해나. 그래서 처에 받아 맛이 받아.人맛이 받아. 내가 로제 내가 나왔지. 내가 니네 이제 자체가 너무 많이나. Rana come down to the Kelly Chocolate, the Sotaga Dom or Yanti.
So the first level of supplication is the essence of the Pratimoksa or individual liberation vow. And this vow is taken from now on and for as long as I live. And in the Pratimoksa or individual liberation, the main focus is the activity, the conduct of the outer conduct of body and speech, but also the mind. So that could mean to take a vow of refraining from any of the 10 non-virtuous actions, or it could mean to take the 4 root vows, or even just a single vow, or however many vows. So you take whichever vow to yourself, whichever vow you are able to observe, and even if it's just one, and then ideally in terms of timing, you take this vow until you die, for as long as you live. And so that is in the ideal case, so the longest until you die, or if you cannot do that, you can take a vow for, say, a year or a month, or even just for 24 hours, for example, as is the case with the Nyingne, the one-day vows that we take. And you can also take these vows at home yourself. You can just think that to yourself. And so that is the essence of the Pratimoksa, or the vows of individual liberation.
Zumba Gong Sor Dagan Durang Mishi Jue.
Here you say your name.
Jasin Soy Parda Ganyin Namje Cho Sajela Japson Cho Chapata Trava Namje Cho Chila Japson Cho Tho Namje Cho Ginding Japson Cho Da Jasin Soy Parda Japson Zamba Nanga Sungwe Gimin De Zumpe Zong De Sor.
And then in English, Noble One, please heed me from this very time, and for as long as I live. I who am called, then say your name, take refuge in the Buddha, who is supreme among human beings. I take refuge in the Dharma, supreme among those free of attachment. I take refuge in the Sangha, which is supreme among assemblies. For as long as I live, Noble One, please accept me as a lay practitioner who upholds the threefold refuge and observes a few precepts.
상촉받들이 줘지 이 생분도 많이 배 생분도 많이 배 유는 통제더니 다 같이 유는 몰랑나 줘지 그러나 로제 나와제 샤제 야 때문에 자충님 뭐 받아 지저받을 인초서 특히 소도 동만나 소요리 이러나 담자 제도로나 누가가 동반이나 상촉스럽게 제다나 이렇게 제다가 지하철만 벌어들이 초고요래지.
So now we took the vow for as long as we live, but actually the great Debung Geshe Ngawang Punso Rinpoche, he said in his explanation on the Mahayana Sojong vows, that actually you can take even those vows until attaining enlightenment. It doesn't have to end with death. It all depends on your aspiration. And if you have the aspiration, you can take the vow for however long. It could be for as long as you live, or it could be for a year, or a month, or a day, or until you attain the essence of enlightenment. So this is what he taught in his commentary on the Mahayana Sojong vows. And even if you take a vow of body or speech, if you seal or kind of infuse this vow with bodhicitta, then actually it will be sustained for many lifetimes. And these vows, the essence of these vows is the individual liberation vows, which is to abandon harming others entirely. And of the actual words of the Buddha, it corresponds to the line, "Do not commit any wrong." And then the second vow, the commitment, is related to the Mahayana vow of bodhicitta, the mind of bodhicitta, and this is the vow that we take until we attain enlightenment. And here you say your name.
Jesi Sanchok Jingbo la Chiti Pardo.
Jesi Sanchok Jingbo la Chiti Pardo.
Kanyin Namje Cho. Sanji la Japsen Cho. Chakpa da Drava Namje Cho. Chula Japsen Cho. Cho Namje Cho. Gendun la Japsen Cho. Da Jesi Sanchok Jingbo la Chiti Pardo.
Da Jesi Sanchok Jingbo la Chiti Pardo.
Japsen Zamba. Nanga Songwe. Gimnindo. Lopung Jizong do So.
And in English, Master, please heed me. From this very time and until attaining the essence of awakening, I, who am called and say your name, take refuge in the Buddha, who is supreme among human beings. I take refuge in the Dharma, supreme among those, free of attachment. I take refuge in the Sangha, which is supreme among assemblies, until attaining the essence of awakening. Master, please accept me as a lay practitioner who upholds the threefold refuge and observes a few precepts.
Giva Posum Chopake, Jevate, Di Nani, Jino, Jimpi, Gypsy, Dubna Sanchok, the Nova Sansong, they don't people double subject logo Dobateri, Jimpi, Gypsy, Dubna Sansong, great.
So then in the refuge card, the actual word of the Buddha corresponding to this vow is a perfectly practiced virtue. And then in terms of the vows, also on the card, it says, when benefit of others and its cause are accomplished, this is the essence of the Bodhisattva vows. So basically it is to think that I must benefit sentient beings. That's the essence of the Bodhisattva vow.
di doba di yang tang de ma re je de doba di sa je nam kha gong na ge so go yo le pe na ka le so jong song ni ba wo si ye le no ba lang ni zu ni ba ma so pe kha bo ji yo de ko ba la de sang ma je je ba de ni pe me ku te la de sa je zhong di je ge de ge long nam je la zhong nam ga la so jong de da ri tang ni so jong go yo le你说上九成不多吧？没把他们这个这里边呢，清白那这里东啊下不碰不什么多，你人生青年说老过送，这你把没用啊，你这下午老过弄，你把多把让你把用个人，你把下里下这个，这把了用地米家，你把下关这块的这不用地的，下关解决吧，这啥就干的，这下过来的呢，这把没用嘛，这下把解啥就干的。들이 대외들이 대강이 선대식 뭐 그런이라들이 네 로버도 나도냐 제가요 말 로버 나도 다로 줘요리 선대식 뭐 그런 포주요 말이 얘네들이 다다다 제직딘스 무게 송요 강에 이 대레인이 송때 상하게 줘 받을 마에서 개와라 거송 따뜻도 동담베디 대식 뭐 로바테리 무슨 사자지 뭐 공주대 다시 공자신은 신이라서 공걸로 통마 대상 거. 나 상마제 받으면 공자고. 마시 받을 나에서 개와라 거서. 강리. 딱 나이나 마시 받을 다 마시 받을 나에서 개와 거다 되니. 삭지지 개와 사라. 동치와 빌락다라고. 뭐 계좌 로제пт이 내 빠지면 내 욕투고요래. 용대는 때 강소를 쳐. 니네들이 랑코 니나 괜히는데 니가들이 사진인추 유면 제지. 강대 니는 콜로지 장가가 쏴. 나가 장가가 쏴지더니 팬들이 사진 담는 초반공은 초반 초도 줘봐. 자고래. 사진 사야만 보라. 니네들 도망가 초반 벌쳐 그래. 사진인추 유면 제지.甚至这种语没钱，俺的啥叫过嘛都有嘛的，他店里的小我送我啥样嘛我个进肉有可说，俺店里有的，卡当里有的，我这不我开始说过的，我大地进来的罗马的些的嘞，不路边的不偷就是那路边的那你就说，他这个我进来的罗马的些的嘞，可做了不弄些有的，我甚至这种语没钱说过的。얘네들 로마니 전부 사람들이 그쪽에 구종번하는 송을 오 야매양 통홍수 살아도 된 통홍수 그래도 고수 전부 사람들이 또 쓰고요. 나를 무릎 주면 계속 랑게 생고만 대바지나 양다디 좀 다 나다 이디 좀 다로요. 실제는 기계는 양다디 다로요. 무릎을 때려서 면 타독 사제가 고방 세부들반 차공도 어디 셨으나 사진하고 샘들이 대회들이 직디서 뭐지 소용이 있었는데 하도 특히 저보다 특이용 상마제 저보들 나에서 개발할 거 공자들이 마시 받을 나에서 개발할 것들은 다 랑코들이 직접도 맞으네 그 대레인의 동들이 막 상타서 저보들 나에서 개발할 거스나 딴 일이야 용내야 딱 그리고 타마팀들 타마팀이 접에 나왔지. 야지 니자 차설 마치네 비용도 타고요래. 내 비용도 와르는 뭐 송그리. 인기를 보지가 살리죠 송그리. 노바 송은 통이 최소적으로 송나 비용 출자송. 너 개베사와는 출자와시. 내라서 봐서. 되는 통까지 송나티 수남지 똑대 초라로야 요르마 먹이와나 길에지 미연구 요리데 기와나지 기와 지금 먹이와 싸마서로 돈 소용시 받으란 게 내 말이는 거서 알아자고도 도바쳐고도 통당고도 베테타고 쭈빠찌짱이 설렁하게 디 소동지게 옛날에 제 말을 배송은 앙이냐마 바다는 범 초세에 섭도를 샤르니 장 쇼르니 장 셈을 섭다시리 송송티도 설 주보로 섭다시지 다때다 용도 통스 난 셈섭다시리 기초보레스 난 셈섭다시리도 되지 봐요 내가 지금 시합 모데 시합의 상제에 얘를 뛰니 라니 소비만 와도 내가 뭐시 이나니 기시시대 돌나 강도 쫄람 just 랑 생전 내가 갑자기 송로 다 뛰는 제만한 줄 알아서 뭐요 최근에 나까지 탐터를 고소를 고소지 좀 초아들 내고 어떻게 고소리서 하고 그러고 그래서 저는 고소에 와 하고 싶은 딱만 차로도 다 뒤리 최근에 갑자기 박차 총총 야지 하마오나 들이들이 째기 아니자 멋지가 되는 멋지게 중무등 통나 어디 그것도 약물도 없어 이 섬 예술 들면서 고소를 남 박차 요도 열 찾고 열로되나 저차 니차 섬차지 들이 다 가리네 다 잘라니 난 요고도 야 도구통으로 다 자사자고도 내도 참 박차 투고 런지 때에서 그당만 손 박차 토마조디 하고 그래. 박차 토마조디 하고 그렇지 사제지 뭐 시합성 대다고 때에 들이 맛이 받는 거에서 개발하고 어떻게 가리 따따리 정도 놀다 강도 쫄랑 त्यस이랑 그 세전 내가 라시 전도 된다 십지 되면 진시지 사제기 뭐 시합돼 따짜 문이들이 시합들이 이제 이거래 대리 제외들이 다다 너무 창송 지디 섬제보고 동다도 하거나 누비 다낭 정시바디 세고도 다도 습지 담지 사지기 뭐지래지 데르스는 누비 다낭 정소리 그때들이 다다다 맞게 짜도 그인지
So that was the second step, and then thirdly is the ultimate refuge, and we have said before that is to understand that when you take refuge in the Buddha, you are taking refuge in your own wisdom, which is the heart essence of the Buddha, and when you take refuge in the Dharma, you take refuge in your own love and compassion, which is the heart essence of the Dharma. And when you take refuge in the Sangha, you take refuge in the spiritual, the virtuous friend, virtuous friends, which is the heart essence of companions. And so this is one prayer that we recite in the beginning always, in the morning prayers. It's called the Dak Dangma, which is a prayer by Jigten Sumgan. And so first we say, all enemies who hate me, and so on. And then we say after that, and for this purpose, I will apply body, speech, and mind towards you. So that is that prayer by Jigten Sumgan. And we should read that each and every day together with our refuge prayer. Because in this way, actually, we are again and again purifying the mind. So there is this practice called the sojong, which means the purifying and restoring, like a ceremony, a vow that we take. And so actually, what we need to understand here is that when we take those vows, for us, mundane, worldly people in samsara, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to make no mistake, to have no downfalls, and to, even though we take the vow, we still make mistakes, and we fall down from it. And actually, it is said that until you attain enlightenment, you will make those mistakes, and there will be some breaches to the vows. And that is why the Buddha actually gave this practice of the sojong to his monk disciples. So the sojong is this restoring and purifying vow, which is a one-day vow that is traditionally taken, for example, on the full moon and on the new moon, like twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. And so now for us, so you are all lay people, like call it householders. And so for householders, it is also very significant to purify our violations. So for example, there is this practice called the confession of downfalls from bodhicitta, which is from the Three Skanda Sutra, or the Three Heap Sutra. And it is said that it is best you recite that often, like 3 times in a day and 3 times at night and so on. But basically, when you recite it, then your negativities are being purified. So what the Buddha said is not necessarily that you can't make any mistake, but what the Buddha did say is that you have to confess and you have to recognize it. You have to feel regret when you do make a mistake. So that's really the key point, because mistakes arise and we shouldn't be judging each other for having mistakes. What we should do is confess. So it is also said that that generally there are no good qualities to negative actions, but if there would be a good quality, then it would be their potential to become completely purified through confession. So we can purify, and that's the word of the Buddha, the instruction of the Buddha. So he didn't say never make a mistake, but he said that you confess it and recognize it. And so ultimately, our true nature is Buddha nature. Our true nature is pure, and it is completely unconnected to the various temporary, momentary thoughts and emotions that we have. So these layers, these temporary layers of thoughts and emotions, they need to be purified so that we can see Buddha nature. But Buddha nature is never affected by them, and Buddha nature never changes at all. So this prayer by Jigten Sungen begins with, so from today onward until attaining enlightenment, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. And that reminds us of the ultimate truth, our ultimate vow, our own Buddha nature. It refers to the meditation on Mahamudra, or your meditation of shamatha, calm abiding, and so forth. So what you should think here is that until I attain enlightenment, I must practice. I will meditate and practice until enlightenment. So then next we say, from now until I die, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. So for me, for example, that is to spin this prayer wheel. Spinning a prayer wheel combines the practice of virtue, of body, speech, and mind, all into one. It is a very easy practice, but it is extremely meaningful and powerful. And anyone can do it. For example, older people, even in their 80s, or even if you're sick, you can still spin a small prayer wheel. And especially, of course, younger people can spin one. So actually, when you spin the prayer wheel, what the prayer wheel accomplishes is that through the prayer wheel, you're making an continuous and ongoing offering to all the Buddhas. Because with each rotation of the wheel, however many mantras are contained in the wheel, they go out with each rotation, and in the form of deities and mantras, they emerge out and make offerings to all the Buddhas. For example, millions of Chinresiks emanate out and make offerings to all the Buddhas. And at the same time, secondly, the prayer wheel becomes a continuous and ongoing purification of obscurations of sentient beings. Because, for example, that's why I'm always constantly spin the prayer wheel, day and night. Because there are a lot of people who think of me. Many of them are alive, some of them have passed away, and I feel that I am responsible for them. They think of me, so I have to care for them. And that's why I'm always spinning the prayer wheel, so I can always send them the blessings and the protection. So, for example, there's this other prayer that's from the Bodhicharya Avatara that says that may I become the source of all desires and wants that beings may have. For example, a child to the childless. May I bring a child to the childless, a wealth to the impoverished. May I become like a wish-fulfilling gem to anyone's needs. And so thinking in this way, I'm sending out Chenreziks and Taras through spinning the prayer wheel day and night. Also thinking that in this way, I'm paying back my karmic debt that I have with people who have been kind to me too, and who think of me. So in this way, the benefit of sentient beings is accomplished continuously by spinning the prayer wheel. And also, when you spin the prayer wheel, then Chenrezik and Tara always appear within the mind. In the Samantabhadra Prayer, also it mentions, also in the Samantabhadra Vatara Prayer, also there it says, may they see, upon thinking of him, may they see Manjushri, or may they see Vajrapani, and so on. Or we can say, may they see Chenrezik. So this is how the benefit of beings is accomplished. Through my aspiration, when those prayers reach them, then also Manjushri and Chenrezik and so on appear in their minds through the force of my aspiration. So that's the second benefit. And the third benefit of spinning the prayer wheel is that it is a continuous accumulation of siddhis for myself. Because by spinning the prayer wheel, gradually I am purifying the dualistic grasping at self and other. And when that becomes purified, compassion becomes stronger. And actually, there is no higher siddhi, no higher accomplishment than to melt the ice block of self-grasping. Because the mind in its natural state, which is like water, is actually Buddha. So this is the meaning of the Sojong vow that we take, which in our prayer of Chikden Sumgön, the Takdama, it's very short, but it's extremely meaningful. So that was the first and the second. So one until enlightenment, second one until you die. So until enlightenment means to meditate until enlightenment. Until I die refers to whichever vows. For me, it is to spin the prayer wheel, because even if you can't do anything else, you can spin a prayer wheel. And then the third line says, from now until this time tomorrow, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. And that refers, for example, to the one-day vows, such as the Nyungne or the Nyingne vows, that you can't take continuously. So if you think that you can't take a certain vow all the time, for example, you can think that I'm not going to smoke maybe just for a day, or maybe for a month, or maybe for a year. So even just for 24 hours, the benefits are really great. And that is also mentioned in the Vinaya scriptures that also soon Garchen Rinpoche will teach on. And so even if it is just for 1 hour that you take a vow, you're in that hour engaging in virtuous activity, and that is of an immense benefit. That merit is extremely powerful, and it will never become spoiled. And likewise, all our negative actions will not become spoiled. They will also ripen eventually. So this is what we purify. These negative actions we purify through the practice of the Sojong. We bring an end to them. We purify the mind. So it is very similar to purifying, cleaning our body, something that we always do. For example, you shave your beard and you wash your face, you put on makeup and so on. We also need to do that. So since we need to do that, we also clearly need to purify the mind. The concept is very similar. Milarepa actually once said to his disciple, the girl Pardabom, he said that you are very good at cleaning your face, but it would be even better if you would clean your mind. So what he's basically saying is that don't pay too much attention to your physical appearance, but pay a little bit attention to your mind, purifying the mind, and a little less on your body. And how to do that is through mindfulness and awareness. And the essence of this awareness is your inner Buddha. So this is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, which is really all I know. So in there it says in verse number 36, in brief, whatever you do at any time, look at the state of your mind. What's the state of my mind? And in this way, you accomplish the benefit of others through constantly being mindful and looking at the state of your mind day and night. So this is really, this verse number 36, is really something that I hold on to tightly, and just like it's like a nail in my heart. It's always there. And I always remember it. For example, sometimes when you get angry, there's this feeling of anger that arises. And then if you're mindful, you recognize, oh, I'm angry. And so then you see that this is it. That's the one that creates all the difficulties. This is what needs to be purified, because if I let it go, if I just let it stay there, then I have already placed an imprint in the mind. So it starts with a very small imprint. But if you allow these small imprints to stay in your mind and without recognizing them, then the next one, there will be another one. So then you have 1 and 2 and so forth. So you accumulate these imprints in your mind. And then when those imprints become really deep, then one day, for example, you see a person and you immediately see their fault and you think that, oh, they're just bad, then that naturally just stays in your mind. And so with that thought, they're bad, it becomes even deeper. So then you have 2, 3, and so on imprints. So you're reinforcing, you're deepening the imprints of resentment and anger in your mind. And the same is also for attachment, the object of your desire. If you just allow it to be there, then you accumulate 1, 2, 3 imprints and so on in your mind. Or something that you want to buy, some kind of thing that you really like, and you think that I have to buy this, I have to get this. Or for example, when it's about relationships and you think I have to get married and so on. So as it is said in the Samantabhadra Prayer, these imprints gradually become deeper and stronger. So that's why it is important to recognize them the first time they arise, immediately. The very first time the small imprint arises. And that recognition, the one who recognizes it, that is your inner Buddha. So that wisdom, that awareness is the heart essence of the Buddha. And that is sustained, for example, when you take this vow, until I die, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. Or from now until this time tomorrow, I practice virtue. And so that third verse here really refers to this moment to moment, looking at your mind according to verse number 36 in the 37 practices. At all times, look at your mind. What is the state of my mind? Be mindful at all times. And this mindfulness, this conscientiousness, that is the heart essence of the Buddha. That is your inner wisdom. That is your actual refuge, your actual protection. And it is from this wisdom that compassion arises. So this is how you should understand the 3 lines of Thigten Sumgön's prayer that we recite. And then also lastly, so the first one were the individual liberation and the Mahayana, and then lastly, that is until enlightenment. It refers mainly also to the tantric vows of a pure perception toward the universe and all sentient beings. So gradually, as your mind becomes purified more and more, you see things in a more pure way, and you finally recognize that your own mind is actually Buddha. So this is how you should contemplate when you recite these prayers. And so then next, I will take a hair clipping from the crown of your head.
대대설이 책통 요리 강리들은 네가 단 통지 말이 너희들 좀 말이 단 잡을 남고 깔만그 장가가 너희들 장미 말이 석회하고서 사제가도 하고 말이 적들 장미가 장미 섬지 시를 사제를 납차래 대는 뒤 가래 다 거리 마다라 가래 요리 다라 가래 다 거리 들 고아들이 다 빠져 요리 대하고 거리 거리 사강 사야방고 요나는 이 타공자원 되지면 다리 니마리를 때 고마리를 잠깐 터주고 요리 네 선우직이양 터주고 요리 나주세진은 뭐 따빨리 하고도 따따로 내양들 때는 men체요 하고 보니 때문에 잡을 잡을 봐 제가 요리 하고 말이 라고 말이 다 내양들 샤도 잡을 미마고 샤스면 눈이 지나 파 치와라더니 반참이 오면 코로나에 샤도 거리 저렇게 와서 제가 요리 그래서 주마다 버리들 너한테는 다 집어나 언제그리리 아무리 그리 말해서 싸보니 요리 뒤니가 다 거리 내 발에 가려서 내 발이지만 니제는 다 빨리 토로도 하지 아주 내 발이 되는데 좀 더 하지 내가 말해서 몇 토조리 소설 나사동이 누구서를 미인고 용고도 가지 다내 말이 떼하고 말이 니가 말했어 니가 뭐 니는 따와서 또 나오니 가리 니가 주마다 버렸어 대가리 니가 주마다는 네 주마다를 썩하고 그래 생우분 내력들 다 사제 전문으로 너지 장지 생우분 코란이 제조하도게 저하도게 다 때려 요 말이 나갔다 왔지 그때는 밥살이 대회는 뒤 내력 때문에 내가 사자 집어 똑같이 닦고 요래 얘는 진직디에서 우고 다 공부하지 않는 송요래지 강송이 추근 시상 밥에 내력돼 되면 사자 집어 요말 똑같이 보 요말이 뭐마치 뭐 로그를 왜 저를 위해서 접고 그렇지만 뭐니 맹답을 돼 맹똑까지 돼 동나라들이다 요미 매미지 생각 내력되라 추근 시상 밥에 내력돼 생각 내력다 그러다 내력을 따와지 이 석에 납서 어찌로 지남자 참이 시요리 락을 내력도나 투바고는 매지 랑그 생기 내력도 제 따니 하고서는 들이 쫄었던 간지 무거워서 락차래 명하도는 요래지 나 뒤에 내력도 가리지 내력다가 다 사자치보 내력다지 사자치보 실명다고 그래지 사자치보 때나 가리지 사자치보 당연히 타 주고 땅에 타 주고 저래 뒤타도 서비스에 석지부터 말이지 두 번째는 사자치보 타 주고는 제양 무슨 랍다 출라도 송을 사실 다 제고 책들이 찍자요 말이 야 또 하더니 졸라 대리 지금 센서 타지 생이 또뭐 타지 야 제양 무슨 랍다 출라도 저 세고 내려올다 내 방가 망고 맞지 이번 세문함지 광절까지 애들 기양 세문함지 줄어도 직장에 그 선남과 따르래 뒤싸워 하고서는 다 되게 좋으래 얘네들이 고아를 다 주지 세무대로 대해서 요아를 다 주지들이 습진의 삼중제지 라마나 뭐지 다르대 양다양도 거나 참나들이 라기를 연구를 참잖아 동상서 세를 장서 가장 중요한 자용을 되라. 그게 내와치 뭐지? 뒤가 되니 줄을 많이 세척을 남고 말이. 랑을 타지 버리. 되니 조사지 좀 되는 것을 손나 찍혀 먹고 소리지 다 줘야 그래. 얘네들이 때려 박혀서 찌양만 세블라 대출라 돼서 말아리비 샘다 남가 체미를 죽을 롱도 줄 봐야지. 따뜻히 금치농지는 다 송대로가 말라리뼈 송대로가 세고 내려오라고 타 주고 어디 그랬을 때 뒤까지 니 당하는 다 마다 우보리 말이 가는 싸고 말이 통대를 누마다고 뛰는 팝살이 내 말이야 마사 내 말이야 마사 대사들이 하고는 내려오들 거 누마다고 해서 누마다고 땡땡땅 빠와도 땡땡송 이 돈이 돼서 거리 그때 다 나도 그때 사실 맞지는 꼭갖고 거리 이 고아가 다 줘봐도 요아가 다 줘봐 니요래 Everything I tell Shivai, this is it, I don't trust on.
And so then regarding the tantric vows of the pure perception toward the universe and sentient beings, so now when we say that, when you become skilled in seeing what appears in all beings, or the container and the contained is pure, within that you have mastered the tantric vow. So maybe it's a little bit difficult to understand that based just on those words, but this universe and all beings, what that is that everything that we constantly see and encounter. So it's everything. It's not just the world that appears around us that we can see, but it's the entire universe. For example, all of the planets and the stars. There's this limitless universe. The Buddha had already said that there are countless universes and planets and stars, not just this one, not just this world, not just this planet. And so the Buddha said in his teachings that don't just look at this world. So already in the past, in those days, the Buddha said that there are so many universes, not just this universe, and many planets and stars and so on. So in terms of seeing there is pure and impure now, what we first need to understand is the nature of this outer manifesting universe. So first we need to see that it's not just this world that we live in, but there are millions and billions of planets and stars and universes, and even though they physically manifest, their true nature is really nothing more but dust, because they are impermanent and they will disintegrate one day. They will completely crumble, fall apart. And likewise, also this world, this planet, will fall apart one day, will come to an end. So that's the impermanence of the universe. And then also the sentient beings, all the beings in this universe are impermanent. And that's something that maybe nowadays with the pandemic we are a little bit more aware of, but actually nothing really has changed. It's always like that. It's just now, because it's all around us, we think that, there's all these people are dying now in the pandemic. We think that now this is something that's happening new, that's just happening now, but actually maybe now it's just the time that we recognize what's actually happening all the time. Actually, beings are born and beings die non-stop, like an ever-turning wheel, all the time. So when you recognize this fact, then things begin to appear like illusions. And how we see things as purely is that first what we need to purify is this labeling of our ideas as this or that. For example, we think that basically there is two ways we see things. We think that that's true, that's real, or we think that that's not true, that's not real. Both of these thoughts, kind of concepts, need to become purified. This thought of it's real, it's true. Nothing is really true because everything is impermanent. Everything will disintegrate. And nothing possesses any true substantial existence, like a self-sufficient substantial existence. So that is the outer universe. It doesn't really truly exist. So first that is what we need to understand, but then also we shouldn't cling to the idea that nothing really exists. So basically we should not cling to anything at all, whether we think it's real or it's not real. No view should be held on to at all. But both sides should be seen as illusions, illusory by nature. So that's the first thing that we understand, to see the true nature of the mind. And then finally, when that is actualized, then one transcends this dualistic existence. One becomes a Buddha, for example, the Buddha Vajradhara, who transcends birth and death. So the mind itself, the natural state of the mind, never actually really experiences the suffering of birth and death. It doesn't exist in space. In space, there is no birth and death. So that is something that we recognize through practicing, for example, Mahamudra or Dzogchen. But these are also just designations. Mahamudra and Dzogchen are just names. Actually, Jigten Sungen said in the Gongchik that, so in terms of the Buddha's teachings, he said that the Buddha, what is taught is only the fundamental nature of all phenomena. The true nature of all phenomena are taught by the Buddha. So it's just that we label them, that we label this realization with terms such as Mahamudra or Dzogchen or Madhyamaka, the middle way. Through the middle way, the Madhyamaka, for example, we resolve the view, the ultimate nature through logic and reasoning and so on. But these are all just names and terms. Ultimately, the ultimate truth transcends all of that. And it's neither existing nor is it non-existing. So the Buddha only taught the true fundamental nature of phenomena. And therefore, what you should do is to look at the true nature of your mind. Look at it as it is in its natural state. And that's what we call viewing the natural state. And who has seen that natural state? For example, one master that everyone trusts in is the omniscient Longchen Rabcham. And he had said that when you realize the natural state of the mind, there is no higher learning than that. So meaning that once you have seen the true nature of your mind, you don't have to learn or study anything anymore. So he said that in a text called the Mengao Tzu, which is the treasury of pith instructions. So therefore, all we need to do is to look at our mind, look at the nature of the mind. And that is what we call a state of Mahamudra. It is like you're kind of looking with glasses or like a magnifying glass. You're having a very clear view at the nature of the mind. And so what we need to resolve, what we need to recognize is Mahamudra, the nature of the mind. And it is something, Mahamudra, the true nature of reality is something that we can never completely comprehend through words at all. But it is taught in the Mahamudra teachings. It is said that the way to resolve it, the way to really recognize its nature is, it is said, without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature, your ultimate nature. Actually, everything is included within these words, and there's nothing more than that. The sutras and the tantras, everything is in this sentence. So just look at your mind without a single thought, meaning that when you look at your mind, then and you meditate, there is then a moment arises where thinking stops and no other thought arises. So no past, no future thoughts. So you're in the present moment in between all the thoughts. And in that moment, sometimes just naturally on its own, you know the nature of the mind. You see the nature of the mind. And so this is how you understand it, how you really ascertain the nature. You know your true nature from an experiential level. And so when you then see this nature of mind without any thought in your mind, it's just like vast space. But there's also a clear knowing there. You know your true nature. So there are different ways of understanding the nature of the mind, and so we can understand it through like an intellectual understanding. where you just think that this is how it is. But ultimately, you need to resolve it through an experiential understanding. It needs to come from an experience. And the experience arises, now as you continue your practice, an experience arises. It arises also from the moments of feeling love and compassion for sentient beings, and also devotion to your guru. And then within that state, you continue to meditate over and over again. And so as you habituate, sometimes this knowledge of your true nature just naturally arises. Suddenly you know. Suddenly your mind is completely empty. And you feel so happy, so joyful in this moment. And that is what we call the great bliss of Dharmakaya. So there is nothing, no more question left in your mind. It is something that clarifies everything. So even if the Buddha would come to you in person, there is nothing more left to ask. You would have nothing known, you would need nothing from the Buddha. You have seen everything that need to be seen when you just see this moment. And so that is what Tilopa meant in the Mahamudra teachings of when he said, without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature. Also Milarepa had said that when you recognize that your mind and space are indivisible, you have recognized the Dharmakaya. So these words by Milarepa and also the words by Longchen Rabcham are all actually the same in essence. They speak about the recognizing on an experiential level the true nature of the mind, and this is really what determines your perception, your pure or impure perception. So therefore, now with regard to the outer universe and all the sentient beings, when you're in a state of meditation, you don't have to think about them as they are pure or they are impure. Don't think about anything at all, about anything whatsoever, no thought, not a single thought. So you don't even have to conceptualize the purity. No thought, there's just seeing and experiencing. And from within that state, and naturally an experience of everything is like illusory arises within you. So for example, in the Sutra path, this is referred to as the illusion-like samadhi. And then there is the hero-like samadhi and so on. There's different kinds of samadhi. But this samadhi, this illusion-like samadhi arises when there is no grasping at either it is true or it is not true, or it is pure or it is not pure. There is just no thought in your mind. So this is how the illusory samadhi arises, and from that arises a pure perception. So basically we have those two ways of understanding, a pure view, and one is through a more intellectual knowledge, and one is through experience, so actually experiencing it. And so this is regarding the secret mantra vows. So within that, as it says in our card, within a pure perception toward the universe and all beings, all the tantric vows are complete.
단 매점 좀 많긴 보더니 자반 좀 바로 나면 맹대 배도 동거요리지. 드리지나 동지 레더 생내 메나 권종에도 대비냐마 취제 생기 바상보 소탐제네 나발자 대시저 정도 최당대 마 쪽부쪽바 좀
So now you receive the name, your Dharma name of the great Jigong Kagyu lineage. Whatever your name is, you have to use this name. And so now what Rinpoche was reciting is, for this purpose, disciple, do you wish to have your crown lock cut in the presence of the master called Guncho Gyamtsen? Then as a disciple you would respond with, I shall be willing.
Samantabhadra Prayer, home so that's what I'm saying. Jula to Japaradas. Can I know those over good? You bottom towers over the bottom just on the work. Papa Jip to some young on the market in your moment. Number over the on the board. You want the answer up from Jedo, control the Monayam, choose us so long, Baba. You don't give them the nose by short, Chuna Tata, some don't talk to the the taste of the doctor, done as Zobosa, Tobacho, Luna, nothing, Jajja. One of the nose of Jachutado, yet as I don't know, so no Saja, you thought to the Java to Jaja, was to reach the heart to get Munasa, the Nakon of the Son, you want to Dr. Samana, Jetaba. Then there's a good to do Duggar, give a chestap. So none do your dogs on Joe, no man, Ramichija Bala, Satan, Joe, Dole, Doge, Changa, Gomba, your door. That's a Monante Gidi.
So now at the end, we please repeat in English the concluding prayers. Please repeat. Following all the victorious ones, may I train, bringing excellent conduct to complete perfection, and engage in holy, pure, flawless discipline that never lapses and is free from faults in this and all future lives. May I never be separated from the three jewels for the sake of the Dharma. May I even give away my life and work for the benefit of beings with great determination. May Bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen, where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase, higher and higher, in this and all future lives. May I never be separated from the supreme teachings of the unequaled Drigungpa Rinpoche, and may glorious gurus take me into their care in all rebirths. May I never be separated from authentic gurus. May I enjoy the glories of the Dharma, and having fully perfected the qualities of the bhumis and paths, may I swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara in this and all my future lives. May I be born in a good family, be endowed with clear intellect, be free from pride, be greatly compassionate and devoted to the Guru. May my Samaya with the glorious Guru remain firm, whatever aspiration prayers have been made for the sake of sentient beings, from the great Samantabhadra, Vajradhara, on down to the kind root gurus, may they all be swiftly accomplished.
Three Tata, Hitchilla, the Jabdom Gumina, Justin Bukopa, Koyore, they got the Tachimori, Minjet is a Justin Busha, you did, then got you think Pake, the Papa layer of sonnet, and Justin Buko Lama, the Chetong is you, Teri tezini teri komangbozu, teri chobar mochi ramneshini, teri chobar mochi ke koche ya lang teri, koche ya lang, chungchong mati ya lang, kalang na chok so, kalang na chok. O, 내가 kalang na shoga dogde, ya chok bangati, chungshu te, da che dere. Teri chek kote se che se de yore. Teri kalang dogo gora so tab yore. 이 거기 때문에 소지요래. 내가 또 채물마데 멘토네. 그랬다 사자 결론 이만까지 가사칸데 자치 보조리 가사카라 요래. 진짜 탑지라. 얼마 닝바래. 이 짓을 마사 바탈 쳔지요 말이. 쳔지는 뭔가 소지 껍질로 소다는 들고 사는 거로 소지 밥송지. 이때다 가고 나티네다 요요래. 대회 대파장들이 참아들이 잡는다. 다 퍼요래. 거기다가 가군 무슨 요요래지. 대체도 좁아는 뭐지. 소답들이 그거 바카사칼 마모요래. 다 가군은 요리들이 들이 데려들이 다 답적이 저기서 뭐고 가서 저야 이제 요래. 들인 자매들이 대답지 다다다 들이 다다 나는 게오 단티 같이 되고 맹댕이 커요래. 내가 저기서 우지 이마든지 좀 강투서 제거래지. 근데 저기서 뭐 껍질 거래지. 거치고 가서 총 저저만 받았다. 돌아가시에 좀 갑자사 주요래. 들이 송벨 거래지. 들이 다다 송강리 조금까지 되나 다수 공부하지 반대리. 다수 공부하지 반대리. 뭐지 좀 저기서 빠신 고섭자 매야래. 좀 뭐지 시주 파티 체소는 들이니 신바디 잡네. 들이세카 세타지 위부터 디사트나. 들이 좀 뭐지 그 졸란졸 티안가 공부서 요레스 베차파는 들이테다 뭐지 그 졸란티 고트리 졸네 또 요레스. 들이 또 하는 뭐지 톡대들이 가 삼행제리. 들이 마트도 또 잡동리. 들이 잡는 맛 사촉세리. 들이 다다송 콜로메도 사촉센서. 들이라서 봐. 들이 사촉센데 사제 탐지가 톡지바리. 들이다 기티송고 고송 톡용된 첼레데. 이거 마트도 이제 피부사와들 사제가 땜바리. 들이 강트도 이비 좀 거리. 들이 주로 나마들 다시 델렉쇼이제. 담막거제를 보더니
So on this refuge card, there's an image of a statue of Chigden Sumgun, and this particular statue of Chigden Sumgun is extremely precious, and it goes back to the time when Chigden Sumgun was actually alive. So that's when actually these statues came into existence, and so how they came into existence was through Chigden Sumgun's disciple, Garchen Rinpoche, who went to the Naga land, and then he brought back to Luyul, and he brought back, basically he made two kinds of statues of Chigden Sumgun, and one is bigger and one was smaller, and he made many of each. And then he brought an example of each, so one bigger and one smaller one, to Chigden Sumgun, and he asked for a consecration of those statues. And so then first Chigden Sumgun picked up the smaller statue, and then he put it into his mouth, and he said, "Oh, it fits into my mouth." So that's why it received that name. The smaller statues are all called, in Tibetan, it's called Shalchugma, which means kind of a place, the one that was placed in the mouth, or kind of the one that fits in the mouth. So that's the smaller one, and then after that he picked up the bigger one, and he also tried to put it in his mouth, but it didn't fit, it was too big. So because it didn't fit, he bit into it. So he was biting into the statue, and he said it doesn't fit, and so he bit in it. And so then it left actually a tooth imprint on the head of that statue. And then after that, on all of the statues, the bigger ones, then the tooth imprint appeared miraculously. So he only was biting into one, but then the tooth imprint appeared on all of the statues. And so the bigger statue, therefore, then received the name Termama, which is like basically the one he bit on, the one with the tooth imprint. And those with the tooth imprint in particular are actually regarded as very precious, not only in the Jigong Kagyu lineage, but in all the lineages. Sakya, Gelugpa, Nyingma Kagyu, and so on. You find them all over the place. Everyone considers them as really quite amazing and very precious. And now actually all these old statues from the time of Garchen Rinpoche, all of these statues that he made, they all then had this imprint of not a tooth imprint. Then the new statues that are being made kind of as a replica of these statues, they do not have the tooth imprint, but the old ones all have, and they still exist all over the place. And so now it is my responsibility to propagate the Jigong Kagyu teachings. And so, like, one way to do it through the body also is that this particular image here of Jigten Sumgön, the statue, the main statue actually stays at Gar Monastery right now. So then after the Cultural Revolution, it was brought back and installed, and it still stays there. And then we took a picture of it and printed it on that refuge card that you all are receiving now. And so so that is also one with the tooth print. That's at Gar Monastery. And then there is, of course, many other Jigong Kagyu monasteries, and many of them also have this tooth-printed statue of Jigten Sumgön at their monastery. And then this particular one here on the image is in Gar Monastery. And then also we have commissioned those small replicas of these statues to be made that I have given as gifts to many benefactors and other people, for example, to Germany and so on. And so since I'm the one who now holds that name of Gar, tracing back to Garchen Rinpoche, it is also my responsibility to uphold and preserve Jigten Sumgön's teachings to the best of my abilities. And so, as I said, one way to do it in a physical way is that I have created or produced, have had those statues produced, like hundreds and hundreds of them, maybe around like 500 or so, maybe more, and have distributed those statues. And then the way I'm also preserving the teachings of the Jigong Kagyu is by, for example, propagating the teaching of our main text in the Jigong Kagyu lineage, which is the Gongjik. And now in the old days, the Gongjik basically completely was demolished during the turmoil. And at that time, there was a wood block print version as like an original kind of version that remained. And so that was then preserved, because everything else, the lineage of teaching the Gongjik and so on had been lost for some time. But then again, we reinstalled it. Also, for example, in the Serta monastery area, which is the monastery of Jigme Phuntsok, we started the tradition, they were inspired by Gar Monastery to start the tradition of having discussion groups on the Gongjik and text. And that is something that was really initiated by Gar Monastery. So then also I made it a mission to print many of the Gongjik texts from this original wood block of the Gongjik. So that's the speech. And regarding the mind, Jigten Sumgön's mind is a mind of love and compassion. And for you, the disciples who receive the Refuge Vow, that's really the essence of your vow. It is to cultivate bodhicitta. It is said that the supreme protection sphere, the most powerful protection sphere, is bodhicitta. And that is the mind of all the Buddhas, that is the mind of Jigten Sumgan. So this is how I try to uphold Jigten Sumgan's enlightened body, speech, mind, his activities and his qualities. And so mainly the teachings are also kept alive by engaging in activities that benefit others. And that is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help others, benefit others as much as I can, as well as I can. So anyways, Dharma friends, many Dashi Delek and long life to you.
Kimbo Konjo Mendra Kosong to Tinja Kondotini, Mendra Bea Intini, Tessa the Rinpoche long life prayer in 26.
So first Kempo Gunjo Tupsam will offer a long mandala offering to Rinpoche, and after that we will recite the dedication prayer on page 26.
Yeah, long life prayer.
The long life prayers on page 26.
Yellow book.
What? The yellow prayer book, yeah.
Benzarazado Zamaya Mana Balaya Benzarazado Denoba Dedan Remember Sudagayo Member Sudagayo Member Manado Member Sabasida Member Yaza Sawa Kama Zatamsi O Banga Sawa Danga Mame Menza Benzarabava Mazomaya Zado Benzarabama Yena Maradawa Wanjin Serja Zaya Benzarekeva Sajara Mejoja Yanza Govezo Honre Jabora Yarlamba Nena Balaja Zaidamene Yada Lamba Maya Danayagi Nabda Yodenda Lamjunro Zanda Damen Jeda Damen Jeda O Bazanje Kin Dunjaya Ba Mame Baya Lodo Kolor Moje Novarum Boje Sumorum Boje Longorum Boje Langborum Boje Maborum Boje Nadamchurum Boje Maborum Boje Tarjim Waya Bambai Gevama Devama Karma Medoma Dubema Nazarma Dajama Nyama Dava Rambojayan Sule Nambara Java Janze Praza Ladan Baya Panjara Prazanza Masangba Meba Yenga Nambara Dawan Danye Kunjong Edan Dibanya Chuje Zenga Vara Zambo Choke Yabran Dambawa Jewa Doje Zayine Zenje Lada Zaya Veja Zaya Medora Rara Lingan Yada Jambanda Sanje Yingla Mikta Borwaya Rogananda Yenda Jewayo Zanzar Vadan Juje Yavada Yize Yaran Kagen Zowaye Gewa Jonze Dake Jazaba Zoga Page number 26, Yellow Book. Mandarin Drova Salai Yagedo, Benda Jebdan, Derloy Naroika, Madame Dazan Jede Zongazo, Jobai Remza, Nanje Gelezo. Kangen Zenya Yila Dimbe Mu Deme Nave Lamne Danze
Takdim Menjore Zayan Jojin Be Jonde Wansen Gunbe Gele Zor Namdain Timja Lapa Dawara Jo Doje Zambe Durza Bardaka Zini Sakin Yung Rango Jo Edon Dimbe Kyabde Zor Kibzai Gunzai Gunjin Jiji Danda Nela Wanda Dragon Ba Rinjin Baraja Damba Zenda Ba Yeda Dazangon Zinjur Ji Sadon Korlo Jirve Jirbo Don Jedam Zangbe Zanje Don Namkai Dave Jabe Zewa Je Zamba Jere Ze Surwa De Hoi Mane Be Me Oire Hoi Mane Be Me Oire Hoi Mane Be Me Oire Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Garchen Rinpoche, for bestowing the Refuge Vows. And I want to welcome everyone who's taken Refuge Vows for the first time to our Sangha family. And I'd like to report to Garchen Rinpoche that the Sangha in Europe has recited 2,010,458 White Tara mantras since January 2021 for your long life. And I also want to announce that Susu, who wrote the biography on Garchen Rinpoche's life story, she has kindly made this beautiful offering for Losar of the book 1 of Garchen Rinpoche's biography in Tibetan, available as a free offering for anyone who would like a Tibetan copy. So please see our website for all the details. Happy Losar.
Dankeschön.